Today our topic is behavior as communication, and I'll get into what that means a little bit here. So I'm Dr. Megan Broome, and just an overview of our agenda. We will be talking about what's developmentally appropriate in terms of challenging behaviors and what those behaviors might be communicating. We'll discuss in more detail some of the challenging behaviors that come up. We'll talk about the importance of attuning to your child, co-regulation, and then I will provide some resources towards the end. And towards the end, we'll also, as Jill said, have a moment for some questions. So just a quick overview of Marcy Compton. Our mission is to empower individuals at any age with learning and socio-emotional challenges by providing diagnostic, therapy, and support services to help navigate their educational and mental health journey and fulfill their career goals. And we do that through providing testing, diagnosis, therapy, and support services for individuals across the lifespan. So how do I know what my child needs? When we bring home an infant, you're tasked with learning how to tune into what their cues are communicating. And that can be quite foreign when you bring home a new child as a first-time parent, for example. So you learn what the sounds and movements they make are indicating and what needs they're asking you to meet. However, when these babies become toddlers, it can feel like everything we just started to understand gets thrown out the window. As you know, toddlers are called little teenagers for a reason. And part of this is due to the fact that it's their job to start to explore their world around them and to test limits. And because their brains are so new, they don't always make a lot of sense. And that's when parents see things like this. Little toddlers doing crazy things and having big emotions about things that seem kind of silly to us as adults. So this seemingly nonsensical behavior is exactly why I would encourage you that it is not useful to argue with young children. While they know that they're experiencing a big emotion to some extent, their brains are just not equipped to explain or reason with their parents' adult brains. So they don't have the ability to really understand where these emotions are coming from, and especially when they're in that really heightened state, when they're having a tantrum or they're crying, they really don't have access to the part of their brain that can help them explain what's going on and talk it through. Although toddlers act like mini teenagers, the truth is that they're still in the very early stages of being a person, and they have a lot yet to learn. And in fact, children do not begin to develop the ability to reason at all until they're about 5 years old. And if you know any teenagers, you might agree that our ability to reason is not fully intact until our mid-20s. So even at age 5, it's very simplistic. So when a child can't explain with their words, they end up expressing their emotions using their behavior and expressing their needs as well. So some examples of common challenging behaviors we see, whether that's in toddlers or young children, or even teenagers, to be honest, are meltdowns, saying unkind words, bursting into tears when it seems like the thing that they're crying about isn't so big, screaming, refusing to engage in tasks. So our adult brains often can view these meltdowns as a conscious manipulation. You know, my child is trying to get something from me, which is why they're having this meltdown. Or it can be viewed as, oh, my child's just being difficult and unreasonable. Again, I want to remind you that they are not able to reason in terms of their brain development. So our child in reality might just be having a really big emotional reaction to feeling overwhelmed because they do not yet have the tools to calmly assess the situation. So this is a helpful way to kind of visualize what you're seeing above the surface in terms of behavior and what might be going on underneath the behavior or what kinds of things that the child is asking for. So you may see things like tantrums, defiance, a child being really dramatic from our perspective, seemingly manipulative, or lacking flexibility. And what might be going on underneath of that is a wish for connection with their parent or caregiver, a wish to be comforted in a moment where their bodies are really heightened and dysregulated. There might be a wish for their parent to be a little more patient with them in those moments. There might be communicating that they're having a really difficult time managing their emotions. They might be telling you they're frustrated, they're overwhelmed, they're overloaded sensorily. And ultimately, what they're communicating is, hey, I'm still learning. So just when your child feels like they figured things out, they're hit with a wave of hormones and new expectations when they enter their preteen and early teenage years. So at this age, a child's brain is tasked with forming their identity, and they take a lot of risks in order to do so. And some of these things look like distancing themselves from their parent and having a really difficult time seeing eye to eye with parents. And that can feel really bad as a parent, especially when you spent all of these years kind of building your connections and trying your best to be supportive and kind of not realizing what's going on with your kid. So what can you do? In the same way that you learn to tune in to what your infant needed, attunement to your growing child is a very important part of navigating and understanding the function of challenging behaviors. So I would encourage that in challenging moments, you ask yourself, what does my child's behavior mean? What are they trying to communicate with me? This graphic is a really helpful way to kind of visualize what a child really needs at the end of the day in terms of attending to their needs and helping them to feel a sense of security in their parent. So, at the baseline, a child really needs their parent or caregiver to be a secure base and a safe haven. So that means that they need you to support their exploration, knowing that exploration is such an important part when you're developing and growing, which includes things like watching over them, delighting in their growth and in their exploration, helping them when they need it, and ultimately enjoying life with them. At the same time, a child needs to feel welcomed to run to you when they need to look for protection, comfort, again, delighting in them, and the ability to help organize their feelings. So this kind of goes back to what I was mentioning before of young children simply do not have the tools yet. And as a parent, you're a really important builder of those tools for them, because you as an adult hopefully have many of the tools that you can start to practice sharing with them as they're developing in their own way. So ultimately, you're a safe haven at the end of the day. And this is just a reminder that as a parent, we encourage that you always be bigger and stronger and wiser and kind. Whenever possible, try to follow your child's needs, and whenever necessary, step in and take charge, especially when it comes to maintaining safety and security. Dr. Chelsea has a really good way of explaining co-regulation, so I wanted to take a couple of minutes to share this with you.
Number one thing that you need to know about the brain and nervous system when your child is super escalated is how co-regulation works. Take your hand. This is a Dan Siegel metaphor. Put your thumb in the middle, put the fingers over the top. This is a metaphor for the brain. This is the prefrontal cortex that's right here. Brain develops back to front. This develops last, like in the 20s. Okay, so that's right here. What lives there? Language, rational thought, critical thinking. Okay, when we become stressed out, overwhelmed, big feelings, we do this thing called flipping our lid. Okay, when that lid is flipped, then you've got the limbic system. That's here. That's like the seat of the emotions, constantly scanning to answer the question, am I safe? And the base of the brain, that controls like automatic functions, breathing, heartbeat, that kind of good stuff. So if your lid is flipped, what you need in order to get your lid back down, okay, this is the process of resiliency, is another nervous system, especially if you're a child, right? And you don't yet know how to do this action. What you need is another nervous system to help you get back into regulation. So if you're here and somebody comes along and they use a quiet whispering voice, they sit next to you, maybe they give you like some sensory input, some squeezing, some hugging, you may over time come into regulation with them, right? You borrow their calm, their nervous system in order to bring your own down. So what happens for our kids? Let's say they're hitting, kicking, throwing, yelling, screaming, grabbing, all that kind of stuff. Their lid is flipped. And sometimes our lids flip too, because we see our kids doing that stuff, hitting, kicking, grabbing, yelling, screaming, and we remember our own limbic system is scanning, okay? We start to remember, not consciously, but we start to have a felt sense of what that felt like for us when we were children, when that was happening, and our lid flips. And then you get into a relationship with your child, and there is no nervous system to help your child learn how to do that regulating process. And so you get into a co-escalating pattern. And what does that look like? That looks like kid yells, parent yells back, kid yells more, parent yells more, kid hits the wall, parent slams the door, right? And there's no process of like coming in and calming. I know it's really hard. This is like the hardest work of parenting, okay? But your task, if your child is escalated, is to get your own lid down and then to get into a relationship with them so that over time you can get their lid down. This is really hard work, okay? So it involves doing some of the healing work yourself, and you might need some help with that. If you've got really big feelings coming up for yourself every time something goes down with your kid, you might need some help, right? If your reactions are bigger or feel bigger than whatever has just gone down, you might need some help. And needing help is fine. Most people need help. Okay, so then when your child yells, screams, kicks, hits, grabs, that's your cue to first take care of yourself and get your lid down, and then to come into a relationship with your child. Now the task is, how do you do this? And you're probably gonna have to experiment. It could be by holding something warm or hot. It could be by drinking a glass of cold water. It could be by calling your friend for 5 seconds and feeling heard. It could be by tapping. Okay, it could be bilateral stimulation. It could be hugging your dog. There's many things it could be. And you're going to have to sort of like suss out for yourself, what do I like? Maybe it's reframing for yourself. Maybe it's something you say. Maybe it's turning the music on and having a dance party for a hot second before you get into a relationship with your child. You're looking for something that can help you get here real fast. This is it's hard, okay? But we're trying, right? We're giving it an effort. And then I'm going to come into a relationship and I'm going to use a whispering voice. Okay. And I'm going to know that it's not immediate. That just because I'm calm and I come over and I use a whispering voice and I stay super centered, they're not immediately going to come back into a relationship with me and calm down. But over time, I'm going to have a much better chance of like staying with the plan that I want to stay with, of using the tools that I've seen on TikTok and elsewhere, of generating the felt sense of calm for my child if I can keep my own lid down. Okay, so if you can't, like say your kid is up here and you try, but then you get lid flip because you're starting to get frustrated. Okay, take a hot beat again, either swap out if you can, but if you can, take a hot second for yourself. And you can even language that and message that after the fact to your child. So you might say, oh my gosh, can you believe it? I just got so frustrated. I'm still working on it. I'm probably going to even figure it out. I bet tomorrow I'll remember. Maybe tomorrow I'm going to try X, Y, and Z. You can say that. It's okay to say that, right? And then you're just like in this practice so that over time you practice getting your lid down and then you practice helping your child get their lid down. It's just a practice. And that necessarily means that it's not always going to be super easy. And then sometimes it's not even going to work. And if it doesn't work, don't beat yourself up about it. Right? That's going to probably make you lid flippy again. And you need to keep your own lid down. So what you say to yourself about this practice needs to be, I'm doing the best I can and I'm learning and I'm trying and I'm going to get it. And I'm a good parent. And we can figure this out and we can do hard things and I've got it. And then you just got to keep practicing. And practicing and practicing. And you know what's going to happen? Your child is going to see you practicing and practicing and practicing. And you're modeling is like, oh my gosh, it's the most important thing. It is the best way to teach your kids to get their own lids down. So you keep practicing and they're watching you practice. And over time, that practice is something that like becomes part of the woven culture of your family. And you don't have to be perfect. There are going to be holes. There's going to be times when you flip your lid and slam a door, or you yell, or you swear, or whatever happens. You like put them in the car and you have to walk around the car once before you're ready to get in because it's like, that was a hard one. That's okay, right? It's like you have to hold that and also be on a simultaneous path to getting your lid down and staying more regulated and healing the hurts that make you get triggered really easily. And you might need help with that. That help can look lots of different ways. It might be, well, it can look lots of different ways. Maybe it's a friend you sit with and that you're accountable to. Maybe it's your partner. Maybe it's your community on social media. Maybe it's a therapist. Maybe it's somebody you go to at your church. Maybe it's just like showing up with the moms and like laughing at school drop off. Maybe it's humor. Maybe it's coaching. Maybe it's movement. Maybe it's yoga. Maybe it's learning like fill your own cup and consider like, what does the support look like for you as you hold the need of your children to learn to regulate and need you to learn to regulate with them? That's where we're going, right? That's the path we're on.
This idea of the lid flipping is one of the many great things that Dr. Dan Siegel talks about in The Whole Brain Child. That's a very big recommendation. So just to kind of reiterate what Dr. Chelsea talked about, co-regulation can look like sitting quietly with your child, putting your hand on their shoulder in these big feeling moments, maybe patting their back rhythmically, just like you did when they were an infant, right? You can ask them if they're ready for a hug and help to label their emotions. That looks like, it seems like you're feeling overwhelmed, frustrated, afraid. As Dr. Chelsea also mentioned, modeling is a very, very helpful way of teaching your child these skills. If they see their parent who they really look up to, figuring out what their big emotions are and how to cope with them and how to get through them, it really is a strong way of teaching them how to do that too. So this can look like, when I feel overwhelmed, it really helps to listen to my favorite song and dance it out. Or when I feel upset, it helps to take a deep breath. Or the messaging to yourself and to your child, you can do hard things and I'm here to support you. Another key way that children learn and process their emotions is through play. Entering into their play can be a very useful way to gain insight into what they're thinking about, and it provides a lot of low stress opportunities to model your expectations and behavior. That can be anything from sharing to using an appropriate volume indoors, or whatever it is that you're trying to help your child develop. Even in play, you can use let's say these dinosaurs, you can use them to tell each other, oh, I'm so frustrated. And the other one says, okay, it's time to take a deep breath. And one really key part of this is that bringing these skills to your child, it is always the most effective when everyone in the room is calm. So that way, when one or both of your nervous systems become really heightened and activated, you can call upon those skills that were developed and practiced over and over again in a calm state. So you have more access to them when your brain is flipped. As Dr. Chelsea also mentioned, parenting is really challenging, right? And so when parents and caregivers feel like they're at their wits' end in those really tough moments and are desperate to find a solution, it's very easy to fall back on less helpful methods of managing behavior. This can be threats like, oh, I'm taking your phone away for the rest of your life, or shame, why are you doing this to me today? I'm stressed out. Blame, or just simply having difficulty being patient. And when those moments do happen, it's also really important to look at that rupture and figure out, how can I fix that? And how can we try again? So this will involve having self-compassion and understanding I'm just a human too, and I'm also learning and growing and figuring out how to work best with my child. And ultimately, our children know that we love them and that we're trying to find the best way to navigate life's challenges with them. So you can simply address it. I'm sorry I lost my patience. Sometimes I get overwhelmed too. Let's try again. So here are lots of resources that are highly recommended. These give lots of ideas about how to work well with children in their developmental trajectory, how to talk to them so that they'll listen. Lots of parenting ideas, dealing with big emotions, how to really structure that circle of security that we saw, how to make sure our child is feeling secure in coming to us for things. And a couple of other books by Dan Siegel that are very helpful.